about getting together? Okay, just want to make sure you saw it.
I would like to call the meeting to order. If we could all stand for pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have a roll call, please?
Justin Rock,
Here.
David Glabe,
Here.
Wayne Dudo. Here. Nicole Howard. Here. Molly Keene. Here. Marianne Meason.
Here.
Denise Wheeler.
Is there any changes that need to be made to the agenda for this evening?
There are no changes.
What's that?
There are no changes.
Perfect. Consent agenda. Looks like there is only one item. Do we have a motion?
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Perfect. All right, we're going to move into public comment. And with public comments, it's basically anything that is not on our agenda tonight is the time for whoever would like to come up and address the council. We do have a 3-minute time limit, so please keep it as close as possible. When you do go up, please make sure your name, address, and all that is on the sign-up sheet. And so at this time, anybody that would like to address the council on non-agenda items, this is the time.
My name is Casey Brown. I'm a mom here in Grande. My daughter Nora, she's sitting right over here. Can you wave, Nora? She is an elementary student at Central, and I'm here tonight because I wanted to talk about her walk to school. And I have a couple of maps for the council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So one of the reasons we love living in Grande is the accessibility, and we love being able to walk to school. And so we live on Cedar Street, and Nora has a little less than a half-mile walk to Central Elementary School. We typically go right down Cedar Street. We usually walk once or twice a week, but we would walk a lot more, I think, if I felt a little safer about the route. And so on our walk, we have 6 four-way stops along the route. 3 of those stops do not have stop signs. And I'm concerned about a couple intersections. The 2 I have listed there on the corner of Cedar and Penn and the corner of Cedar and O. Those are unmarked 4-way stops, and that there's quite a grade on those streets, and so cars I found will fly down those hills, and I think that the assumption is just that they're going down the hill and they have the right of way. And so that area was really, really busy when 2nd Street was closed. Additionally, on her walk to school, I think when I walked it the other day, only a quarter of it what actually has sidewalk. And so at several of those intersections, there's no sidewalk, no stop sign, so we're out in the street. And I'm just really concerned that somebody's going to get hurt, primarily some of the kids that are walking to Central. And so I'm here today just to show our route to school, and that we really support any moves by the council to improve, especially signage in that neighborhood, but also so kind of short-term signage, but long-term sidewalk development.
I had a comment about it, and Kyle, maybe you could help with that, because I know we had talked about adding some signage to this neighborhood a year and a half ago.
Yeah, there was the recommendation
It might, if there are multiple
Yeah.
people that want to speak to this issue, it might be better to go ahead and do that. And then at the conclusion of that, we have our Public Works Director provide some insights.
Sounds good,
Sounds
because I live in this neighborhood and have brought this up too, that there's a lot of uncontrolled intersections and everybody thinks they have the right of way. So
Great.
I know we've looked at it, so I don't know where we're at on it, so.
Okay, I just
Um,
wanted to bring it up, and
I
I've been
appreciate
meaning to
that.
come for a while now, and now that it's getting warm, we're going to be walking a lot more. So I thought this was
Yeah, no, this is a good time.
good. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak?
Do I need to press anything?
Nope.
All right. Hi, my name is Sarah Anderson, and this is our 3-year-old Ellie, and we've got Mabel here as well, and my husband will talk later. I live over near Central Elementary. Our daughter attends Central Elementary too, and I care very much about this issue. So this is my first time ever being talking at a city council meeting. And I'd really like to advocate for more integrated and systematic approach to transportation in LeGrande. So including addressing infrastructure for walking and biking, in addition to cars the way there currently is, right? And by that I mean making it a little safer with better signage, clearer for sidewalks, and then also even clearer markings on streets or by streets of where pedestrians could cross or should cross, and where drivers could expect pedestrians to cross and know that they should stop. Living close to Central, I see a lot of people walking by, a lot of kids walking by, and as a grown-up, there's a certain level of I guess complexity to traveling around here, walking and biking, that I could navigate, but I'm concerned about kids being able to do that. And some drivers look out for kids and they'll stop right away, or they'll see you on a bike or with your kids and as a pedestrian wanting to cross, and they'll stop, and some don't even see you. And that's the part that worries me, especially with kids. And it's important for everyone to be outside, enjoy all the wonderful things that this community has to offer. We love that it's a tree community. We love that we have a downtown. We love that we can walk to and from school. And we do it year round. So I bike with her all year round. We go in the snow and on the ice. And we get them out in all weather. And so I would just like to really advocate for, like I said, a more systematic approach. I'm not talking about sidewalks everywhere right away. I'm saying, if we could prioritize routes like to and from schools, to and from downtown, make it safer and easier for kids, for folks maybe who are in wheelchairs, for people who need to navigate, because it's also the curbs and getting over the curbs. And yeah, I think that's all I have time for anyway. So thank you for your time, and also thank you for your service to the community.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Megan Moore. Hi, Dr. Glee. He's my eye doctor. I love living in LeGrande. I've been here since 2015. I work at the hospital. We used to live across from the high school, and now we keep bouncing all over. But when I had a child, I have a almost 7-year-old, and if we were going to Central, it would be kind of easy because our route would be pretty simple. But when I've looked at maps that Casey and other families have provided, it just looks really chaotic around Central. My son goes to Greenwood, and I think actually that part of town has better sidewalks, surprisingly. So I think any kid, I would trust my kid to walk to 2nd or 3rd grade, but I would have to feel comfortable with the sidewalk route. And I think asking kids to navigate complicated intersections is a little unreasonable until maybe middle school. But even then, there's a lot of parents that choose not to let their kids walk because it's just sort of a mess of sidewalk here, there's a driveway, no more sidewalk. What do you do? So people still walk in those areas. So maybe if the city could find some, funding in that, the netherworld of funding, we could prioritize. I think a mile is a reasonable distance for around schools. I don't know if anybody else agrees with me, but that's like a 20-minute walk for a kid moving at a normal pace. 20-minute walk is a great way to get to school, maybe settle your nerves a little bit, be ready to learn. So I love living in this community because it actually is still a place people will send their kids to walk to school. Like I've lived in the suburbs and I lived in that town we don't talk about near, to the west of us. But this is just a better place to raise a child. And I think it could be a little bit better if we can get some more disciplined approach to sidewalks. And then we can talk about bikeability at a different meeting. Or can we talk about that too? I have 38 seconds. We love to bike with our kiddo. When he was learning to bike, he was on a Strider bike. And that, I'm not having a 2-year-old ride on the street. And the sidewalks were essential for him to learn how to ride his bike. So we did that because we had a nice sidewalk across the street, not on we had to cross the street to get to a sidewalk when we lived on N Avenue, right across from the high school. So biking kids are happier kids, and I would like to have my kid bike with me all over, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Will Anderson. I'm a LeGrande resident. I was here in the January meeting voicing similar concerns to some of these other parents. Couldn't make February. We had COVID. But I did make it to the parking, traffic, safety, road maintenance, and everything else committee in January, and we had a good discussion. I brought up the intersection at 2nd and H, the main deal, the big deal at Central. We're missing a ramp and a curb there. We're missing sidewalks. That was my main kind of gripe, I guess. But I do have a map of what I think I'll in sort of 2nd and H is symptomatic of a larger problem. Thank you. So what I brought, and I think cast your mind back to whenever Central was relocated and built. We've only been here a year and a half, but I think this was in the teens. This is 10-ish years ago. We need to play catch up. This is really what it comes down to. Central was located uphill of the old high school, or the high school. It's been relocated. Back then, there was infrastructure changes, water, sewer, stormwater, traffic flow, power for this huge facility. I don't think anything was done for pedestrian flow. Now, if I've ever wired my house, or if I plumbed a house that looks like this map here, I would have no power, I would have no plumbing, it wouldn't work very well, and it'd be frankly dangerous. And that's what I'm trying to instruct with this map. This is just a simple map. I've circled in Sharpie that intersection, the little black dot, that's that corner without the ramp. Because there's no ramp, kids are walking in the street. If you go up there today and you get out of your car, or if you walk up and you have a look, it looks fine. The grass is down, there's no snow. It looks like a path they can take. But when there's snow, when the grass grows in the spring, the summer, everybody's in the street because they think they're trespassing, or there's, nobody wants to walk through 2-foot high grass, right? I weed whack these 2 blocks. I live on H. I weed whack between 4th and 2nd. I pick up dog poop. I pick up litter. It's fine. I'm happy to do this, but I think there's a better way. We need to update some sidewalks because Central was moved however long ago it was. So you have a March 11th working session for biking and pedestrian. You have a work packet that has been provided to you. There is a map that is called the Proposed Pedestrian System in LeGrande. This map, unfortunately, is outdated. It's showing where there is existing versus proposed sidewalks. They have the school in the wrong spot. This needs updating. If you look at that, also more black Sharpie marker from Will. Okay, so this is sort of symptomatic, and you can just see in the circle that I've hit here, there's a lot of missing piecemeal schizophrenic sidewalk, and so we'd really like to adjust that. We need to prioritize these areas, come up with a list. So, and funding, it's always an issue. Why not trigger infrastructure addition when a property sells? I have the title report. We're subject to an improvement district. When we purchased our house a year and a half ago, nobody from the city has called to ask me to pay for a sidewalk, but I would be willing to do that. Thank you for your time. I know we're all volunteers here. Thank you. And your pen doesn't work.
Hi. Hi. Okay. My name's Shannon Donovan. I'm a resident of LeGrande, and I'm speaking to you today both in my capacity as a concerned citizen and a community planner regarding pedestrian safety in LeGrande. So I'd like to start by saying that everyone is a pedestrian, right? Even those who usually drive, ride a bike, commute by public transport, at some time you will cross a street. So a walkable environment is characterized by safe walking paths equipped with appropriate facilities and encourage non-motorized transportation. So according to the World Health Organization, identified inactivity is the 4th leading risk factor for global mortality. Physical activity in the U.S. has dropped by 45% in 18 years, and a recent study by Nike finds that this trend to be a global pandemic. However, walking is a perfect exercise to make regular physical activity available, affordable, and easily accessible to all. In terms of economic benefits, a recent study found that walkability of a street can lead to an increase of $82 per square foot for home values, $300 per month for apartment rentals. However, in LeGrande, the lack of sidewalks, disconnected sidewalks, lack of signage, stop signs at intersections, and lack of efficient and effective lighting make walking difficult for members of our most vulnerable populations, children, elderly, differently abled people. I recently was looking at the local road and safety plan developed for Union County in 2021. This identified the need to conduct road safety audits at specific locations and corridors. In this plan, residential neighborhood intersections were identified as a priority because of limited traffic control measures such as stop signs and traffic lights. While such intersections can be seen all over town, I'd like to focus on L Street because that's one that my kids and I walk past and walk on regularly when we go to school. L Street is located 1 block north of the high school, and there are no stop signs at intersections on this street for 4 consecutive blocks. So between First Street and Walnut, there are no stop signs. So on our walk to school, we also cross M Avenue. Between Alder Street and 4th Street, it was noted in the City of LeGrande's Safe Routes School Plan as problematic for its lack of safety infrastructure. And according to the local road and safety plan, 30% of fatal or serious injuries from car crashes in Union County occur at intersections. So as such, the LRSP designated enhanced intersection delineation and advanced signage as a high priority. Intersections are crossed daily by LeGrande High School, Middle School, Central Elementary Schools on that side of town. So while I understand money for walkability and increasing safety is limited, we really have a moment in this country where unprecedented funds are available through federal aid, such as the Infrastructure Act. And I want to point out that the Safe Streets and Roads for All funding opportunity currently has requests open for planning grants. And given LeGrande's population size and demographics, we are eligible for both rural and underserved community. And if we don't have the capacity, I would urge you to consider hiring a consultant to write and manage this grant because it really is an incredible opportunity to deal with some of these issues. Thanks.
Thank you.
So yeah, this is a problem for me. Oh, you do? Okay. Well, come on up. Sorry. Yeah.
Do I have to press anything?
Nope,
No, okay.
speak away.
So I'm Clyde Toohey. I do a lot of sports, including cross country and track, and I also walk to school regularly, which when we're doing running and cross country and track, most of the time we can't we can't run on sidewalks because there's a huge lack of sidewalks in the Grand, and most of the time when there are sidewalks, they'll have dead ends at driveways. And then also, I'll usually leave our house late when I'm walking to school. And so then that means I have to catch up with my mom, and then I'm running, and sometimes I won't see a car coming, and there are not a lot of stop signs, which means a car could just come along and truck me. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathleen Cathy. You probably know I'm running for county commissioner. Filed in February. It's a little terrifying. So I will, and I know many of you, including Marianne, who we served on the school board together. So I just wanted to kind of give you my elevator speech. I've worked for Senator Wyden for almost 19 years now. I'm up to 19 counties. The work that I do a lot in communities is bringing people together to solve problems, focusing on issues, dealing with a lot of stuff. For LeGrand, or for Union County, I was instrumental in bringing in the LeGrand VA clinic back in 2008, and I could have retired right then and said, you know, it's a legacy, because that was a huge thing to be able to do. I've helped different communities with wastewater, helped them get through permitting processes, bringing people together to solve problems around forestry, coming in after crises and disasters, including like flooding in Umatilla County. And so after all these years, I really kind of want to come home. I want to come home and I want to spend my time working for Union County. I have a long history in public service. Like I said, 6 years on the LeGrand School Board. I worked with a lot of different groups, and surprisingly, I am an English major, but I've worked a lot with agriculture. So I got an award from the wheat growers this last year that just knocked me off my feet at the 2023 Above and Beyond Award for working with wheat growers. So I've done some ag stuff, help with business, help with a lot of different issues, seniors, veterans, disaster recovery. I'm really glad we haven't had any disaster recovery here. Anyway, that's kind of my pitch, I think. Oh, I will say, the issues that I think are kind of important to work on in terms of Union County. First of all, Union County is incredibly stable. We have a hospital. We have a four-year university. We have a lot going for us. We absolutely have a ton going for us. One of the things I'd really like to emphasize is access to health and mental health care, addiction treatment. It's a huge issue, and right now we're not really. I'd like to see people more connected and working in concert on that. I believe Measure 110 was a miserable failure. It's a nightmare. People don't go into recovery, and get treatment because somebody says they should. Having some accountability makes a huge difference. And I think, from talking with Chief Bell, I think we're singing from the same song sheet. And then also, I think housing's an issue. I'm really focusing on more housing for, workers who maybe just, oops, we'll talk later. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scott?
I always love being the bad guy, especially when they bring different kids. So, but I am the one who gets to bring and tell you where the funds meet the asphalt, literally this time. So sidewalks in established neighborhoods. This isn't a new problem. When you have a neighborhood and there's no sidewalk, it is not the city's responsibility to place those sidewalks. The onus of those sidewalks is placed on the adjacent homeowner. And
So how do you get homeowners to put in sidewalks?
you ask, and if they say no, you ask again the next year, or you just keep going back. There's not a real lot of teeth where I can go in unless there is a proven safety hazard that's backed up by statistics and things like that.
Or if we get a grant and the city does it through the
Yeah.
grants, like Safe Routes.
There's other triggers that we've used in the past. I think Second Street's a great example. We did the study with Safe Routes to School in 2019 and identified Second Street as one of the major pathways that could be developed for Safe Routes to Schools. We started at Adams Avenue due to other restraints with the large diameter water main that we've been replacing. And we've slowly and systematically worked our way up, replaced every ramp, put in new sidewalks. All of it's been city funds, and it was all justified by the fact that we changed street grades. We made those sidewalks come out. It was us triggering it, so we put it back.
Now, is that intersection at Second and H is that coming up next year?
2025 is our current plan for that phase.
So not this summer.
No phases on Second Street this summer. So all of the Second Street funding has generally been coming out of our street maintenance fund, which is our street user fee. So after exhausting it on the last phase, we usually wait a couple of years to let it build up the funds so that we can attack the next phase. So when you have issues where there's an existing sidewalk and a safety issue, I have a lot of teeth. I can walk in, I can force the homeowner to fix the problem. If there's no existing sidewalk, I can go and ask. But to ask a homeowner to throw out anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000, it's pretty tough to get somebody who's willing to do that, especially, as Will pointed out, you have two neighbors who also have to agree just to get one block going. So it's a difficult problem that we don't have a great solution for. Over the years, we've developed, a line item in the street and roads budget where we do try to systematically look at some of those areas where we have breakups in the sidewalk continuity and where it's important. We're pretty much focused on complaint basis, and we keep kind of a mindful list of where we need to go. Examples of that would be like Monroe between Island and Spruce. There is a ton of foot traffic that's coming off of Island. There's not a single sidewalk. There's not a curb. You see kids, bikers, adults, everybody coming through there. But, that's a $30,000 to $40,000 fix. And that's 2 to 3 times the annual budget we have sitting there. So, there is not a great solution for this stuff. The other big one I heard was the uncontrolled intersections when we're talking about like Cedar and L. All the signage in LeGrand follows the MUTCD, which is the standard for signage for roads. Studies have shown over and over again, if you sign every intersection, you're going to actually conversely affect the drivers. You're going to annoy them to the point where they're either ignoring the signs or you're getting the consistent acceleration between signs because it's not going to want to slow them from getting to A to B. They just floor it between each stop sign. So the uncontrolled intersection is a common use in most communities throughout the United States. It's covered in your driver's book. I would turn and say that sometimes it's not just a signing problem. Sometimes we have a driver's problem. We have, a lack of education. Most of the people we talk about are cruising down the hill. Many times we all know it's high schoolers on their lunch hour going cruising down Cedar.
But we had
It's a pretty
decided
common
on the parking traffic safety committee to sprinkle some signs through there to make some driving routes that were protected and not stopping at every intersection. And yeah, 2 years ago we had talked about that.
Yeah, what we were looking at doing is putting up a few yield signs on the
Yeah.
off Cedar
Well,
sides
some kind of control.
to kind of take a look. The Second Street project kind of slowed that down. We didn't want to create new signage on one of the few side roads that we had.
Can we get to that
I'm sure we'll get to that right in the spring.
Like this spring? That would be really nice.
I have to say, just to jump on, it seems like bad behavior on the part of citizens shouldn't be what drives policy. If someone is in response to a stoplight or stop sign going to elect then to drive poorly, that would not be a reason to not put in a stop sign. It would be a reason to set a patrol car there for a week and stop that. I just can't imagine, changing what we're going to do as a community because people can't get to the quick stop as fast as they could the other. I mean, it's just absurd, right?
Your example is the exact reason that I'm saying, why should we put up a whole bunch of unneeded signage because drivers can't recognize an uncontrolled intersection and navigate it correctly?
I do think we are not saying the same thing.
They are
I
hard
think
to
I'm saying
recognize.
we have a clear need to improve the route to school. This is one way of doing it. Maybe it's yield signs, maybe it's some painted crosswalks. There's a bunch of tools we can choose from. But to not do that because drivers won't be mindful of it, it seems like the cart leading the horse, or maybe the tail wagging the dog. I'm not sure. One of those two.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that I'm saying the exact same thing from the standpoint if people aren't following the traffic rules, would you overload and react to what I'm hearing you say is, why would we react to behavior that is improper?
Because it's improper and we need to change it.
And adding signage and adding more rules gives the city not
more
hitting the
teeth to enforce good behavior.
But I don't know that a yield sign is going to give Officer Bell a reason to pull somebody over any more than an uncontrolled intersection would. The right-of-way rules still hold true.
I feel like I'm in a weird space.
I'd rather have the signs out there than have a child get hit. And
I agree. And if again, we don't have the statistics to show anybody
well,
being
I
hit
wouldn't
and
want to
those
see
kinds of.
statistics to show that.
I don't
want to
either.
See the signs up. I mean, bombard with signs.
I think what we're not asking for are actual hits to justify a sign.
I agree.
Of a sign to prevent the hits.
I agree.
Mrs. Moore, in just a moment, I will give you a moment. Well, usually when we do 3 minutes, once you're done, you're done. But once the director gets done, I'll give you a brief moment to get up and make a comment. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not standing up here trying to petition saying, hey, we need to kill some people before we make any signs. I'm just saying from the professional standpoint, studies that are put out in rural communities, over signage is as big of, if not a larger problem than uncontrolled intersections.
This is just a particularly bad area because I live in this neighborhood and I walk in this neighborhood and, I'm a witness to it as well. And I've talked to you about it. So, and frankly, some of the uncontrolled intersections, the driver going through isn't always aware that they're uncontrolled. I've had people come from out of town, bomb through them, and I'm like, what are you doing? And they just had no idea that there wasn't a stop sign the other way because of maybe landscaping or, who knows. So, and there are a lot of people that walk in the neighborhood and all, there are 3 schools there.
Certainly.
That 3 schools and a lot of fields and a track and that a lot of people bike or walk to. So I think we should address it.
I mean, maybe it's better to err more on overdoing than underdoing. Meaning putting up the signs might be better, even if it's you saying it doesn't affect, but it's better than not having them up there and having a child get hit.
Yeah, and we can, as a commission, sit down and talk about it. I mean, it is opposite of the previous practice of how the city is operated. And maybe it's time for a change, but oversigned intersections have not in the history proven to be the answer.
Well, I'd rather err toward over rather than under.
Sounds good. And be happy to answer any other questions you may have from some of the earlier.
Kyle, is there
discussion.
do you have any comment on, as far as marking intersections, is it, a stop sign versus painted lines on the road, or, something along those lines, or a yield sign, something that doesn't necessarily the motorist still has to obey the unsigned intersection rules, but to me, a stop sign is very different than I've got a school crossing. It draws my attention. I'm paying attention to it. I may be slowing down a little bit, or a yield sign. But do you have any comment on the effects of one versus the other? Cost of maintenance, I'm guessing, is always going to be higher if you're looking at painted lines versus a permanent sign.
We've tended to switch more to bake downs. They tend to last longer with the plowing and the snow seasons. So usually the paint is an every year thing versus burn downs we can usually get a few years out of. It just depends on where you go. I mean, when you start talking about pedestrian safety on Adams Avenue, we have crosswalks that are a completely different color than the actual road pavement, and we still have drivers who will not stop for a crosswalk. You can start talking about rectangular rapid flash beacons, but you're talking $40,000 in installation. There are some grant programs for infrastructure, but when you start looking at what the competition for those grants are, it's generally driven on statistics of how many accidents are you having, how many documented accidents are you having. And then, the areas where we do well in, where we have a plan, we know some of the projects we want to complete, and we have the match funds, just don't rank as high as the communities that are in need. We're in competition with a lot of other communities that have a lot bigger problems surrounding their schools than, even the ones we're identifying, which is a scary thought in itself.
Do we have a route that for children on that side of town going into Central? Is there a particular route that children usually take?
Not to the new Central. There were some sidewalks that were funded by Safe Routes to School to the old Central. Now it's different.
Okay,
Now it's
but is there something that some way we can mark a route that will get to the new Central?
And that was the reasoning behind the 2019 Safe Routes to School study. It identified 2nd Street as the most likely collector of children because it has the right-of-way widths. It had a lot of the infrastructure in place, even though it was what we needed updating. There weren't all corner ramps. They didn't all have truncated dome strips. It's interesting, though. I mean, 2nd Street is a pretty high collector street. And when you talk to most of the people who walk and bike, it is not ideal. They look for the sleepier streets. You want the streets where there's not as much traffic for walking and biking. But sadly, there's not a lot of infrastructure in those streets. It just wasn't required when those homes were built. And we don't have teeth to go through and start asking everybody to put in sidewalks. So it's a conundrum that you just have to keep churning. So we are trying to build them. I mean, we look at the H Avenue sidewalk that extends from the new Central all the way up to the hospital that tries to pick up those to the west of the school that was constructed using Safe Routes to School funds immediately after the construction of Central. I want to assure you, it's not a lack of effort by staff to find the funding. It's just highly competitive and not easy to obtain.
So grants are, I'm hearing you say, probably not going to be a lucrative source for us.
There's other opportunities. The state is very has been pushing very hard about getting an equal distribution across the state. There isn't a lot of cities on the eastern side of the state that push for the funds as much as we do. So, sometimes it gets to be where, hey, we want to put one over there, and whoever applies can usually sometimes grab the funds, but it's kind of wait your turn and throw out a project. Recently, we had done some focus on Greenwood. There is a lot of infrastructure there, but again, they're lacking the safety ramps in the corners. The field over on the south side of the road does not have a continuous sidewalk with ADA passability. I mean, if you're on a wheelchair, you can't even run up and down the side of the field because of the tree roots jutting up all the sidewalk ramps. Greenwood was another road that was chosen as a Safe Routes to School route, and it needs some sidewalk infrastructure that would bring kids down to the downtown area. We even went through and we did do some planning grants. We're currently finishing up the one through ODOT where they're designating a multi-use path from the south part of town down to the downtown corridor that we would hope would tie in with that infrastructure going to Central. The efforts are there, but the wheels turn slow. And, the focus of the city has generally been, let's get road surfaces into place. That's where the majority of our funds have gone. And we do try and piecemeal together some of that pedestrian and bike infrastructure where we can.
So how does the local improvement district work? Is that a cost sharing between property owners and the city, or is that still all shouldered by property owners? I mean, and then how do we decide where to create an LID?
So pretty much every year we've approved a sidewalk LID that's open to everyone in the community. The full burden of those improvements lands on the homeowner. The benefit of the program is that the city goes out and gets unit costs at a larger unit. So you're getting a better price. And then we finance it. So you've got to come up with the money right up front. You can either pay it off when the LID becomes due, or you can space out those payments. So the city doesn't bear the costs of those, but we do act as a bank in sorts by financing those improvements so that it's not an out-of-pocket upfront cost.
Is there anything that would prevent citizens who were motivated to do so, to form like some sort of like a community GoFundMe or something like that to aid maybe property owners along a route in funding something like that, in conjunction with an LID? Is there's that something like that would be a feasible?
Highly acceptable.
Okay.
Highly acceptable. And we have the upcoming work session next Monday where we are talking about pedestrian and bike infrastructure. And in preparation for that, I pulled out the 2007 plan. That's why that map's way outdated. It was done 15 years ago. And there's a few things in there that we don't consistently do today that should be brought back. I mean, one of the things Will had mentioned when he's up here is do you have a list of those infill projects that when you have those extra funds in that line item that you're going to go down as a capital improvements list? We kind of keep them in the top of our head, and when people complain, we know where we need to go. But having that list and available to community members so that they know that their problem is on our mind would be a great thing. The other piece that I heard someone mention is pavement markings. One of the plan calls out is for, bike pavement markings to show drivers where we have the more likelihood of where you're going to see bike riders. That's not something we've recently done, but might be something, I've already talked to the street superintendent about, making sure we have some burn downs of the bikes so that we can identify some of those roads where motorists are going to encounter bicyclists who share the roadway. So, I see some changes coming. And, it's citizens who, pick up a cause and bring it to the forefront that kind of makes you pick up those changes and changes the direction of some of the stuff we do.
I hear you saying you can't force a property owner to do it, which would have been cool to know when I was asked to do it and did it. I didn't know no was an option.
We're pretty good at writing letters.
Yeah, someone should have told me. Anyway, is there not a way to attach it to the deed so when there's a sale, it triggers it and it goes into the, that happens in a lot of communities, right? So I can't afford it now, but when my home goes to sell, then it happens.
I'd have to ask Wyatt. That's kind of a legal question that I don't know the depth of. Robert?
Yeah, we can look into that. If I could also interject, in terms of a local improvement district, the way that the current system is set up is literally a property owner by property owner initiated in cooperation with the city. Someone mentioned drawing a mile circle around. If you're going with a full geographical area, the people that reside within that could choose to form a single local improvement district to put all of the sidewalks in at the same time. Those are most successful when the members of the community are the ones that are going forward and saying, we would like to do this. You've identified some specific areas and you've talked about, I would be willing to do the sidewalk in front of my house, taking the approach of identifying a specific footprint for that and wanting to have a single project that's done is an option. And then for those that, and again, I think it's a 10-year term, the payback for that. It's paid much like your property taxes are paid. So it's very structured, or you can pay your portion up front. That's where that GoFundMe thing could come into play for some families. But that's another way to create more of an impact at the same time, but it does take a lot of agreement on the parts of the property owners that ultimately have to pay the bill. So I just wanted to toss that out as something that could be pursued by the neighborhoods.
Any more questions for?
I think this was a good discussion.
All right,
Plus, we are going to go into more detail next Monday anyway. Right.
we are. It was a good warm up.
Yeah. Just real quick, one more question.
Yeah, sure. And I already spoke, but I just wanted to throw out ideas, understanding that, you know, there's not a lot of money, there's not a lot of capacity, staffing is thin. I mean, I get all those things, but, you know, there's a lot of new and out of the box ways that communities are promoting walkability around the globe. And you know, in the United States, there's some fantastic examples of just like new urbanism principles put into play. So road dieting, which I know some people might have a problem with and create other issues, but we have extremely wide roads. And so if putting in a sidewalk is really expensive and is on the is a burden to owners, right? You can create stripping and roads that is for walking and biking, would require like fairly little maintenance other than, you know, there would be repainting, although I think there's new technologies around that. But one side of the road, you know, you have a strip that is for walking and biking, and then you're not dealing with putting in a whole sidewalk. You're using your existing infrastructure, and there are great models for that around. I know that brings up a problem with parking, right?
And snow, because I'm a walker.
Right, but
and
you know,
so
this would
that's
be
where the snow
plowed,
gets
this would be plowed, like it's not raised. And so it's not a perfect solution because it's not completely separated from the street. You know, it's part of the street, but it becomes that part of the street that becomes owned by bicyclists and walkers and would be plowed as everything else is plowed, right? And so you don't have that maintenance piece. Of course, there's some. It might require changing parking, so parking only happens on one side of the road. I know that could be a problem, but
That is
you know,
actually a big problem.
I understand
We've
that.
seen it on 20th Street. I've seen where all the neighbors have lived there for a long time. They come in and they made all the bike paths. Well, they took all their parking in front of their homes.
Sure.
I mean, if that was your house and you had no off-street parking and they come in and tell you, you no longer can park there no more. I mean, we got to think of everybody as well.
I understand that, but I also think we're talking about public good and safety, and so I think there's room for out of the box. I would also challenge the idea about grant funding not being available. I know, you know, there is grant funding out there. I'm not saying it's not hard to get, but it's definitely, you know, not impossible, and it isn't without hurdles. But the other thing I feel compelled
If
to
we
note-
can wrap it up, because like I said, with just one
Yeah.
question, you already had your 3 minutes.
Sorry. Well, just feel compelled to note that while, you know, over signage, I'm not saying is, but there's zero signage on L. And I don't think you would find very many examples of a city this size where you're one block from multiple schools that don't have signage. Like that seems like an extreme case to me and from what you would find in other places.
Thank you. And we are going to be having a work session on this, so we're not going away from it. We are going to work on it. Unfortunately, just not tonight. But thank you for your time and your comments. And with that, we are going to move into public hearings. We do have one public hearing. It's a second reading of the ordinance amending Goal 9 Charter of LeGrand Comprehensive Plan. And with that, Mr. Boquist.
Okay, we ready?
Ready.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is the second reading of the adoption of our Goal 9 Economic Development Report for our next 20-year forecast for commercial and industrial lands. And we're looking at about 180 acres or so of land need, and 120-ish of those acres is industrial, and 60 some of those are commercial. And we're in the process right now of going through an exercise to evaluate expanding our urban growth boundary and where we may accommodate that need. And so we're just starting that process, but The second reading is simply just to adopt a report. It doesn't actually make any changes or set policy. It's just adopting a report that justifies the need. Do you have any questions?
Had one. I gotta find it though.
On the last page, there were some grammatical misspellings. It's not a big deal, but it, again, maybe something, just run a spell checker through.
Okay, thank
a
you.
couple of spots just to clean that up.
Still looking.
Sheesh, Corinne.
I know, I have the page. Oh, okay, so it's on your report, page 28. So goal 9 policy number 23. So, so basically, it's all in red, and it's striking out the urban reserve areas.
Uh-huh.
So are we not having those, or are we calling it by something different, and is it somewhere else, is what I was trying to figure out.
No, so an urban reserve area is something that bigger cities do.
Okay.
And it's been in our plan probably since 93, I'm guessing, when we did our initial comp plan. But an urban reserve area is looking out 50 years. And so that's what the urban reserve area is. And the urban growth boundary is looking out 20.
Okay.
And we go through the exercise of looking at the urban growth boundary probably every 5 or 10 years. And the purpose of an urban reserve is if you're a fast growing community and you outgrow your 20-year supply, you can then move into your 50-year supply without having to go through a significant study process. And for us, is we never get to our 20-year supply and never have. And so we go through our study again to redo our 20-year supply every single time. And we have never, ever kind of reached a point to be able to look at 50 years out, because things just, for us, it grows slow. And
So just cleaning this document out.
yeah, so we're just taking it is an option, so someday if we end up, having a higher growth rate and it makes sense for us to go out beyond a 20-year forecast, then we can even if it's not in our plan, we can still look at a 50-year urban reserve area opportunity.
Any more questions for Mr. Mike? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
This time I'd like to invite public testimony. None. Any more counselor discussion? Nope. All right. At this time, I'd like to close the hearing and entertain a motion.
I move that the proposed ordinance amending Goal 9 chapter of the LaGrande Comprehensive Plan be read for the second time by title only, put to a vote, and adopted.
Second.
Perfect. We got 2 seconds. Any more discussion? None. At this time, could the city recorder read the proposed ordinance for the second time by title only?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of LaGrande, Union County, Oregon, amending the statewide goal Chapter 9 of the City of LaGrande Comprehensive Plan, recodifying the Comprehensive Plan, repealing ordinance number 3255, Series 2022, and all other ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and declaring an effective date.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we have no unfinished business. We are going to go into new business, and the first one is a resolution authorizing city staff to apply for a grant to replace the playground at Riverside Park. And Mr. Stu.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This resolution is required by Oregon State Parks to apply for their local government grant program that provides a 60% match to our size community. We have to provide 40%, of course. The total budget of that project is $650,000, but it's evolving because we have increased community support. So the more and more community support we have through our local volunteer committee means the more things we can buy, right? Or the more benches or shade structures or more accessible surfacing. So that number that's quoted in your council action form may increase. This resolution, however, that shouldn't matter. This is just authorizing staff and the city managers to sign the documents that are required by state parks. I would love to let you know that about $233,000 have been raised by that local committee. That's including city dollars. So maybe about half of that city funding between a few different sources, but it's remarkable that that committee has been out and about raising money. Several businesses, several individuals from $50 to $500 to $10,000 to $50,000 have been coming in. So it's super fun part about my job. It seems like checks are coming in every day, and the deadline for them is about March 15th, so I can apply for this grant by April 1st. So this resolution will go into the grant application paperwork documents and qualify us to get that outside funding to make that project happen in the spring of 25. Are there any questions?
If someone were to donate, who would they make the check out to?
The city of LeGrand.
Just in case anyone's watching.
Yeah, it's absolutely tax deductible. So if you're sitting at home and you're wondering how to make a lifetime impact on this community, a 20 plus 30-year impact, this is it. So there you go. You can purchase an item of the playground. You can purchase a swing. You can purchase lots of different components. You can just give us a donation. That's right. Call today.
Just because we're up there.
Yeah.
Good job, Sue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just cut any commercial you need, Brett. It's all good. Anyway, super proud of the effort the committee's made. They just continue to surprise me, and tens of thousands of dollars. It's unbelievable. So that project is going to happen. I've also got grants out to Wild Horse and the Vista Foundation and Idaho Power. Maybe there's one more. There's about $70,000 in grant applications for that match as well. So if all those come through, plus this momentum is still growing, like I said, we're gonna have more than we need.
Is there a cap on the state match?
No. And well, yeah, it's $1 million cap for grant funding, so we're not going to ask for $1 million. So there's a cap, but not for us. State
Put in
parks.
an ice rink if you did that.
Ice rink?
Well,
Well,
I mean, for the $1 million cap. So.
I think number 2 on the master plan is splash. Guess you could freeze that in the winter, but I don't think that would be advisable. What was I going to say? Oh, so too much information, but state parks is funded by lottery dollars. This program is. There was a certain provision when they got to a certain amount of funding with lottery dollars that it doubled. It's kind of like a kicker for the lottery dollars in state parks. So this year they're giving away $30 million, which is about 2 times what they normally give away. I happen to be on the grant selection committee. I'll have to recuse myself from this one, but that's why I know some of that inside information. We also have one other grant outstanding with them, which is the pump track grant, but we're allowed to have 2 opened applications at a time.
Good.
Way too much information that you need to know, but I'm wound up. You got me all excited.
Where are we on the Riverside?
The trail, we are installing a fence in a couple weeks, and after we do that, Kyle's staff and I are going to be laying it out, so it'll be done by June.
Sorry.
Inquiring.
Anything else on this resolution, Sue? Perfect. Thank you. At this time, we'll invite public comment. See none. Councilor discussion. I think it's a great idea, and I support it. With that, entertain a motion.
I move that the proposed resolution authorizing the city manager to sign the grant application for the Riverside Park Playground replacement be read by title only, put to a vote and passed as presented, and that the city manager be authorized to accept the grant and sign any related documents if awarded.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any more discussion? At this time, could the city recorder read the proposed resolution by title only?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of LeGrand, Union County, Oregon, Authorizing City of LeGrand Parks and Recreation Department staff to apply for a local government grant from the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department for the construction and rehabilitation of the playground replacement at Riverside Park. Authorizing City Manager Robert A. Strope to sign the grant application and any documents related to accepting the grant if awarded.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Of course, nobody's going to oppose that one. They get rocks thrown at them. Thank you. All right, our next one is appointing a citizen to the Library Commission. That would be me. So basically, we are appointing a citizen to the Library Commission, and it will be which will expire December 31st, 2024. I move that John Anderson be appointed to the Library Advisory Commission for the remainder of a 4-year term, which will expire December 31st, 2024.
Second.
Any more discussion? No?
Does that mean that your commission's full, Carrie? Yay.
Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Union County Commissioner update.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. I really don't have much. Just short sessions coming down to the last couple days. Sunny Day is probably going to be Friday night. The report on the fair funding. I did get a lot of good reporting back from a lot of the legislators, but it's short session. And to put it in perspective, there is $74 million that could be spent this session, and there's $704 million in asks. So I knew it was gonna be pretty tough. Oh, there's still a chance, still a chance. So there is a couple days. I did see a list come out. We weren't on it, but I've been talking to a few people, and I'm not gonna stop until that gavel hits the desk. And then if that doesn't happen, I wanna work on the e-board, and then there's next year. We're gonna get this money. So I'm not stopping. It may be 3 million next year, but I think I could keep chasing this all the way up as far as they want to go. With that, I don't really have anything else. Do you have any questions on?
You've been busy.
I've been in Salem a lot. Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna, for a short session, that seemed like a really long one. But any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Appreciate your time. Staff comments.
So I'm just going to give you a quick update on 2 grants that I'm working on. So last year I applied for a code analysis grant for all of the residential elements that are in our land use code. And as you guys are probably aware, the state laws probably changed 3 or 4 times every year for probably the past 10 years and have kind of mandated a number of things that we've changed our code to address that I've brought forward to you. Anyway, there's bound to be something in there that was missed over all of those codes. And so anyway, I received a grant from the state, which a number of cities have applied for, and the legislature allocated some additional funding. And so we were, I guess, cut last year because there wasn't enough funding, but we were notified Monday that we were awarded a grant to do that. So anyway, we're going through all of our housing codes to see if we can get into compliance with any state laws that we may have missed or. But anyway, so that's one item that I'm looking forward to that is coming up. And then the next one today we applied for it's a pre-application TGM grant. And so the conversation you had earlier during the public comments and that we're going to talk about on Monday, this grant is directly associated with that. The plan that you saw or the excerpts from that was from a 2007 update of a bike ped component that we're going to talk about on Monday. But that's actually part of a 1999 plan that is significantly outdated and has very little relevance to today. And but anyway, that's the grant that Kyle and I are in the process of trying to get ODOT to help us fund. And in 2020, I got some technical assistance to actually do an analysis of our transportation system plan, and there's a number of deficiencies that the state identified. And they estimated that our project will be roughly about a $200,000 project to update and replace that document. And so anyway, that's the grant that I'm applying for. And so that's partly why that map is outdated. It's a very expensive process to update. And so anyway, fingers crossed that we make the cut to go to the next phase where we actually put together a work plan and apply for the grant. And hopefully we're successful. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any more staff comments?
David took mine already.
City manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We're working on the language for the charter amendment to change the city council positions to be top 3 vote getters, assuming 3 vacancies. And as we're going through the document, one of the things that kind of immediately jumped out was the way that the charter is currently structured. There are 7 positions, position 1 being the mayor, which is a 2-year position. And if more than 2 people apply for any of those positions, then we hold a primary. By removing 6 of those positions, the only other position remaining that could be subject to a primary would be the mayor's position. I think once in the time that I've been here, we had 3 people that expressed interest in the mayor, but one of them, I think, dropped out. So I don't think I don't know that there's ever actually been a primary in LeGrand. There may have been. My suggestion would be to go ahead and just move any mayoral candidates to the general election in the proposed charter amendment that the voters will have to approve. I think that would be a lot less confusing for people, because if we don't do that, then what will happen is we'll have the filing for the mayor for the primary in the winter time frame, and then later in the spring summer time frame will be the filing for the council. But this is not something we had discussed in the work session, so I wanted to kind of get the consensus of the council as to whether or not to just move all candidates for mayor and council to the fall.
I think that's a good idea.
It's a good idea.
Much better.
So Robert, just to clarify, it would still be separate, filing for, so you'd have mayor as a
Yes, the
separate
mayor's a
slot, and then
2-year
council would be the top 3 each. Okay,
Yeah.
so if you had, heaven forbid, 5 people run for mayor, all 5 would go to that general election, and it would
Correct.
just be the top vote getter who would win out. Okay.
And one could not apply for both.
Could not.
No.
Cannot apply.
You can only apply for one position at a time. The other dynamic is in our charter currently, a midterm at a midterm for a counselor. So for example, if Molly had wanted to run for mayor this November, she actually would have to resign from her council position effective December 31st. So we would, under our current charter, if Molly, just because you happen to be close and I know that you're in the middle for your term, she would have had to have resigned her position effective December 31st. And then if she was not elected to the mayor, she would be off of the council, and someone else would be able to be running for the second half of her vacated position. So the way that the charter is currently structured, you can only run for one position, either mayor or a councilor position, and it would be the same thing with the amended charter. And so another just kind of nuanced element to that. So if the charter, as we're looking at amending it, is approved, then what would happen in November of 2026, the mayor and 3 council positions would be on the ballot. and the top 3 vote getters for the council positions would become the new councilors. The mayor would still be a 2-year term. And then 2 years later, the mayor would be up again, and the other 3 individuals, those spots on the council, top 3 vote getters.
Okay, following that scenario, what you just said though, let's just say we had 3 counselors here in the mayor's position for let's say in 26. Okay, what if one of those 3 counselors in the 28 one decided they were going to run for the mayor, and they'd have to relinquish their thing in that year? But then there would be a vacancy then from that first 3.
Yeah, we would, and
So
that's one of the pieces that we would have to make sure of, not so much for that scenario, because there would always be 3.
Right, but that would be 4 then, because that person would have vacated their position.
Right. So we'll have to do that. And then the other scenario there is if we have a counselor that resigns with more than 2 years to go for the next election, our current charter says that that position would also be up. So, we've had situations where we've had 4 counselor positions and the mayor on the ballot.
Okay, so it wouldn't always just be 3, perhaps it could be 4.
There will always be a minimum of 3
Right.
counselor and the mayor, and then there could be the balance of a term. The only exception to that balance of the term, and I'm not advocating we do this because I don't think it would be appropriate to confuse the voters more on a charter amendment, would be that the council could appoint for the complete balance of the term. So if you have someone, if you had someone that resigned or for other reason was not in office, and had 3 years left on a term, the council in some communities, they can appoint someone that just fills out the entire balance of the term. Ours is structured so that if there's more than 2 years, they have to be elected for the
Yeah, the
balance.
voters need to elect them.
Gap, if there's more than 2 years, does the council still appoint somebody for that gap?
Yes, yes.
And then they would have to run for the balance of.
Yeah, so you would, so if it's 3 years left, you would appoint for a year and then they would be seated.
Didn't Mr. Pointer do that at one time? If I remember right, he was the only one running unopposed. And so he was voted in to run, I think it was like 6 months worth because there was someone vacant.
Yeah, so we've had, I think at least 2 occasions where we had someone that was running unopposed for a position. So say position 2, and then counselor in position 5 resigned. The council just appointed that person who was running unopposed. So they took the oath for that 6 or 8 months or whatever it is. And then in January took the oath again for the position they were elected to.
Yeah. Yes, that's happened several times.
Yeah. So right now we have, we sent out an email, but the deadline for filing has run. So for the fall election, Mayor Rock, Councilor Glabe, Councilor Meisner are running unopposed for your current spots. And Ricky Joe Hickey is also running unopposed for the other vacant position. So barring a write-in campaign, looks like we'll have a great deal of stability on the council for the next couple of years. So I saw lots of nodding heads on the just move everybody forward to the fall.
I think that makes the most sense.
It's the easiest way to do it.
And I am
simple.
planning on doing a work session to go over the charter amendment. I may do that in conjunction with another work session because I don't think it's going to take but a few minutes to go over that.
Right, and I guess as part of that work session, because I was going to say, one of the discussions I want to have is, I think, as you alluded to, there can be confusion for, things like this. And I want to make sure that a good job is done kind of educating the public what that charter amendment would mean so that they're better able to make an informed decision.
Because it used to be that way before they changed it to this way. I mean,
Yeah, and one of the key pieces to it is I can't remember if it's called the ballot title or exactly what it is, but there's a very succinct thing that you're voting on that the city attorney will craft to make it very clear what is intended to be different. That's all I had.
Perfect. Does any counselor have anything they would like to bring up? Well, I'm good as well. So, I'm sorry.
I do just briefly, just maybe for council awareness or discussion. I mean, I confess I've wondered a time or two in the past that we have great staff who are great at writing grants, as we see by, what we pull in. But I also recognize that, grant writing can be a nuanced thing and it can be time intensive as well. And it's made me wonder if we shouldn't explore, the option of maybe a full-time grant writer for the city, or maybe a part-time one that is commission-based. More commonly, I think, grant writers for cities will work for, salary type of positions, but it's not unheard of to have a commissioned grant writer where essentially they're paid off of the grant monies they pull in. And in that case, it's a net, there's a zero cost to the city directly to have that available. I just wondered if having something like that may be some advantage to the city, may provide some relief to some of our directors who could still be directing the grant writing and working in conjunction with a grant writer, but again, possibly would give us more flexibility or the opportunity to apply for more grants than we otherwise might. So anyway, just a thought to consider before the council, and probably a discussion that we'd want to have if we decided to explore that, but just kind of my own 2 cents on that.
Robert, what's your take? Maybe probably not a full-time position. I'm just thinking because of fiscal constraints, but would there be, if someone were available on a consulting basis or a contract basis, would the city be able to leverage that to our advantage?
I think it would kind of depend upon what was going on at the time and how you were going to structure it. I have concerns about putting out, we'll commission you, you write grants, if you get it, we'll pay you. The amount of control that we have to that is a little different. Stu, did you want to chime in?
I do, just because I have a lot of experience with this in previous lives, as you like to call it, other jobs. So great, appreciate the sentiment. The reality is when you hire consultants, they're disconnected from your organization. So it takes a considerable amount of time to get them up to speed first and costing you valuable hours and time. It's fine, it works, right? But it's not all perfect, right? There are lots of challenges with that. And when they transition, sometimes they're with maybe firms or consulting firms, for example. You have different people, then you have to kind of get up to speed all at different times. So it becomes more cumbersome. It's for me, I'll just speak for myself. It's just way more cumbersome than it is just to do it. So I've just done that quite a bit. So just wanted to chime in. Thank you.
Yeah, if you're going to have one, it needs to be a paid full-time position. I've had a successful grant writer in a former life, but doing we'll commission you, hiring someone to do a specific grant, we did that successfully with one of our piece of fire apparatus. So in some cases, it does make sense because that's a fairly complex, very specific grant, and it was worth the money in that case.
Thanks for that perspective. Okay.
Any more? With that, we are adjourned.